Chapter 7. The Yuuzhan Vong War. A Galaxy Aflame. The galaxy had, against all odds, achieved a fragile peace. The New Republic had solidified its governance, and even the Imperial remnant. Under the pragmatic leadership of Grand Admiral Gilead, Pelion had settled into an uneasy coexistence. The scars of the Galactic Civil War were still fresh, but a sense of hope, however cautious, permeated the star lanes. This tentative peace, however, was about to be shattered by a threat unlike any the galaxy had ever conceived. From beyond the known rim, from the voids between galaxies, came an enemy that defied all understanding: the Yuuzhan Vong. The Yuuzhan Vong were extragalactic invaders, species utterly alien in every conceivable way. They were immune to this force, a horrifying revelation that struck at the very core of Jedi understanding and galactic defense. Their technology was entirely organic, cultivated through centuries of genetic manipulation and biological engineering. Their ships were living creatures, their weapons bioengineered parasites, their armor grown on their bodies. They considered mechanical technology, or tech, an abomination, an insult to their gods, and were driven by a fanatical religious fervor to cleanse the galaxy of all such impurities. They viewed pain as a sacrament, suffering as a path to enlightenment, and conquest as a divine mandate. Their arrival was not merely an invasion, it was an apocalypse, an existential threat to all life as known in the galaxy. The first harbingers of this unimaginable threat were subtle, almost unnoticed. Isolated incursions of strange scout ships appeared in the Outer Rim territories, followed by whispered tales of impossible ships from bewildered traders and explorers. But soon, these whispers turned into desperate screams as the Yuuzhan Vong launched their full-scale invasion. Their advance was relentless, brutal, and seemingly unstoppable. Entire star systems fell in a matter of days, their populations either assimilated into the invaders' horrifying bioengineered constructs, or utterly annihilated. The New Republic, accustomed to fighting an enemy that used familiar tactics and conventional mechanical technology, found itself utterly unprepared and strategically bewildered by this alien horror. The invaders' unique physiology and their complete detachment from the Force presented an immediate and devastating problem for the Jedi. Force powers that had turned the tide against the Empire and its dark side masters were astonishingly useless against the Yuuzhan Vong. Telekinesis could not affect their living ships. Mind tricks could not sway their unyielding minds. And even precognition struggled to glimpse their unpredictable movements, obscured by their strange nature within the Force. For the first time in millennia, Jedi faced an enemy who existed outside their fundamental understanding of the Force, rendering their most potent abilities inert and their lightsabers largely ineffective against the Vong's pen-armored bodies. This profound helplessness bred deep fear and crippling doubt among the Jedi, threatening to break their spirit and their very will to fight. The Yuuzhan Vong invasion began in earnest in the Outer Rim territories, strategically chosen for their initial, easier conquests. However, their true objective was the heavily populated and strategically vital core worlds, the very heart of the New Republic. They were not interested in political control or resource extraction in the traditional sense, as most invaders were. Their goal was complete terraforming, to reshape every conquered world into a grotesque, living reflection of their own biologically engineered homeworld, even to the terrifying extent of replacing native flora and fauna with their own terrifying bioorganisms. Worlds that had once been vibrant, living ecosystems were meticulously transformed into grotesque living battlefields, their indigenous populations enslaved, horrifically sacrificed, or simply exterminated without remorse. The scale of the invasion was unprecedented, dwarfing any previous galactic conflict. Wave after wave of living ships poured into galactic space, overwhelming New Republic defenses through sheer numbers, terrifying biological weaponry, and alien resilience. The New Republic military, though vast and experienced from the Civil War, was fundamentally designed for a different kind of war. Their starfighters, once dominant, were outmaneuvered by the agile, organic Yuuzhan Vong Coral Skipper fighters. Their capital ships were battered by the plasma-spitting Duskabear, originally Defensor, gravity-manipulating creatures that could create localized black holes to deflect energy blasts or literally pull starships apart. Piece by agonizing piece, the conventional strategies that had won the Civil War proved largely ineffective against this utterly alien enemy. Early in the war, the New Republic suffered devastating and humiliating losses. Critical strategic worlds, like the vital shipbuilding planet of Doran, fell rapidly, their orbital defense platforms and planetary shields proving utterly useless against the invaders. Relentless advance and bioengineered weaponry. The loss of Doran was not just a profound military setback, it was a psychological blow that reverberated across the galaxy. A stark demonstration that the New Republic was facing an enemy capable of striking at the very heart of their industrial and military base. Populations across the galaxy began to panic. Refugees streamed into the core worlds in unimaginable numbers, and fear threatened to fracture the hard-won unity of the New Republic, pushing it to the brink of collapse. One of the war's earliest and most profound tragedies struck the heart of the Skywalker and Solo families during the desperate evacuation of the planet Cernpittle, a world succumbing to the Yuuzhan Vong's devastating terraforming efforts. The beloved Wookiee co-pilot, Chewbacca, made the ultimate sacrifice. As a moon, controlled by a Yuuzhan Vong, Defensor plunged towards the planet, threatening to annihilate all remaining life and ships. Chewbacca selflessly ensured that his lifelong friend, Han Solo's son, Anakin Solo, reached the safety of their vessel. Chewbacca remained behind, facing the moon's descent alone, deliberately placing himself in harm's way to buy precious seconds for the others. His final roar echoed across the coms, a testament to his immense courage and loyalty, as he was consumed by the cataclysm. His death sent shockwaves of grief and despair through the New Republic, particularly devastating Han Solo, who struggled immensely with the loss of his brother in arms. It's a loss that would haunt him for years and profoundly impact his relationship with his surviving children. This heartbreaking sacrifice underscored the brutal cost of the Yuuzhan Vong invasion. Amidst this chaos and widespread despair, the Solo children, now grown into formidable, if still young, Jedi Knights, rose to unprecedented prominence. Jacen Solo, with his deep, often philosophical understanding of the Force, became a key figure in trying to comprehend the Yuuzhan Vong's unique nature, tirelessly seeking non-traditional Force solutions and insights into their biology. Jacen Solo, ever the pragmatic pilot and brilliant warrior, distinguished herself as an extraordinary starfighter ace and a sharp military strategist, leading daring raids against the invaders and swiftly earning the revered moniker, Sword of the Jedi, for her fierce effectiveness. Their youngest brother, Anakin Solo, possessed an incredibly raw and powerful connection to the Force, often pushing boundaries and taking immense risks to find ways to fight the seemingly unforce-sensitive enemy. Their parents, Han Solo and Leia Organa Solo, watched their children step into the fires of war, leading the desperate fight for a galaxy that was now undeniably theirs to defend. The New Republic's leadership struggled immensely with the unparalleled nature of the threat. Chancellor Mon Mothma, having steered the New Republic through its foundational years and its triumph over the Empire, was now forced to confront a war for galactic survival unlike any other. Her renowned diplomatic skills, honed in the political arenas of the Old Republic and the early New Republic, were often tragically useless against an enemy that did not negotiate, did not understand compromise, and only pursued conquest and utter domination. The military command, led by seasoned veterans like Admiral Akbar, found their lifetime of experience and strategic doctrines utterly challenged by an enemy whose tactics and organic technology were completely alien and unpredictable. The initial responses were often disjointed, reflecting the New Republic's democratic structure and its inherent difficulty in adapting swiftly to a truly existential, all-encompassing war. The Jedi Order, still relatively small in number, and recovering from the internal conflicts and purges of the past, found itself on the absolute front lines, fighting a desperate battle, not just for survival, but for understanding. Luke Skywalker, as Grand Master, bore the immense burden of guiding his nascent order against an enemy that defied their very understanding of the Force itself. He initiated desperate attempts to comprehend the Yuuzhan Vong's baffling force immunity, sending out recon teams and pushing his students to explore every facet of the Force in search of a weakness, an exploit, or any glimmer of insight. It was a time of immense spiritual and physical trial for the Jedi, forcing them to question their beliefs, challenge their traditions, and fundamentally adapt or face utter annihilation. The sheer scale, brutality, and alien nature of the conflict eventually led to the galaxy uniting against a common foe, a feat previously thought impossible. Even the Imperial remnant, under the pragmatic leadership of Gilad Pellaeon, found itself facing an enemy that threatened its very existence, regardless of its imperial ideals. Recognizing the profound, shared threat to all life, the tenuous peace established by the Pellaeon-Gaversum Accords began to evolve rapidly into a strategic, desperate alliance. Imperial forces, with their disciplined structure, vast resources, and advanced weaponry, found themselves fighting fiercely alongside their former enemies against the overwhelming tide of the Yuuzhan Vong. This unlikely alliance, is forged in the agonizing fires of galactic desperation, showcased the terrifying scale of the threat, forcing former adversaries to set aside their deep-seated differences for the ultimate survival of all sentient life. The war raged for agonizing years, consuming star systems and costing untold billions of lives. The Yuuzhan Vong advanced steadily, leaving a trail of biologically altered worlds and utter desolation in their wake. They meticulously targeted vital New Republic worlds, scheming to dismantle the galactic infrastructure piece by agonizing peace. One of their most horrifying and psychologically devastating strategies involved the systematic destruction and terraforming of key New Republic worlds, not just for conquest, but explicitly to demoralize and terrorize the galaxy into submission. The loss of the planet Coruscant, the very heart of the galaxy in a New Republic capital for millennia, is perhaps the most devastating blow, a moment etched into galactic memory. The Yuuzhan Vong, in a brutal demonstration of their power and their utter contempt for mechanical constructs, meticulously reshaped the Ecumenopolis into a grotesque, living temple world dedicated to their horrific gods. The once vibrant spires were replaced by organic, thorny structures, and the countless inhabitants either died in the brutal initial assault or were horrifically assimilated into the invaders' biofactories. The fall of Coruscant sent a shockwave of profound despair through the entire galaxy, signaling that no world was truly safe. Amidst the widespread despair, acts of incredible heroism and devastating sacrifice emerged from every corner of the galaxy. The Jedi, despite their persistent struggles against the Yuuzhan Vong's force immunity, played an absolutely critical role. They became inspiring leaders, strategists, and vital moral anchors for a desperate galaxy on the brink. Luke Skywalker relentlessly sought answers, exploring ancient Jedi texts and arcane Force lore to understand the true, hidden nature of their alien enemy. His tireless pursuit of knowledge led him to confront profound truths about the Force, reminding him and his students that it was far more than just a tool for combat. It was the fundamental essence of all life. The Solo children, in particular, bore an immensely heavy burden of leadership and personal loss, The war demanded terrible sacrifices, and the Skywalker Solo family, so central to the New Republic's hopes, was not spared. Anakin Solo, the youngest of the three, with his immense raw power in the Force and his courageous willingness to push the boundaries of Jedi doctrine, bravely led a crucial and incredibly dangerous mission deep into the Masa, heart of a Yuuzhan Vong world ship. His actions were instrumental in acquiring vital intelligence about the invaders' ultimate weaknesses, but they came at an unbearable personal cost. In a selfless act of profound sacrifice, Anakin Solo gave his life to ensure his mission's success, dying a hero in the defense of the galaxy he loved. His death was a profound blow, a devastating testament to the war's sheer brutality, and a source of immense, agonizing grief for his family and the entire Jedi Order. The New Republic, reeling from their devastating losses and the widespread destruction, eventually underwent a radical and necessary transformation. The sheer existential threat of the Yuuzhan Vong forced a rapid and profound restructuring of their government and military. The inherent limitations of a decentralized democracy in total existential war became painfully clear to all. A new, more unified and centralized command structure emerged, better equipped to wage total war against such an alien and relentless foe. The diverse galactic forces, now including elements of the disciplined Imperial Remnant and various planetary defense forces, slowly but surely began to adapt their strategies. They learned to exploit the Yuuzhan Vong's deep reliance on biological constructs, specifically targeting their living ships, vulnerable nervous systems, and strategically disrupting their bioengineered command structures. A key turning point in the protracted conflict came with the agonizingly slow but ultimately crucial discovery of the Yuuzhan Vong's mysterious connection to the Force, or rather, their profound lack thereof. It was revealed that the Yuuzhan Vong had, millennia ago, exiled themselves from their original galaxy by destroying their own homeworld, systematically severing their connection to their own Force, thereby making them Force immune in this galaxy. Chilling understanding, agonizingly gained through years of research and immense sacrifice, finally provided the Jedi with a glimmer of hope. It meant there was an origin to their immunity, and thus, perhaps, a way to exploit it, to find a weakness in their seemingly impenetrable nature. The climax of the war involved a monumental, galaxy-wide effort to finally counter the Yuuzhan Vong's unique and devastating threat. The Jedi, having painstakingly adapted their techniques and shed many of their old, rigid dogmas, began to find indirect ways to affect the invaders. They focused on disrupting their complex, organic command chains, exploiting environmental weaknesses on the terraformed worlds, and utilizing Force-sensitive non-Jedi in new, innovative ways to gain advantages. The New Republic military, now operating as the Galactic Federation of Free Alliances, launched massive, coordinated offensives that spanned multiple sectors. They developed highly specialized weaponry and cunning tactics designed explicitly to counter the organic nature of the Yuuzhan Vong, including targeted chemical agents designed to disrupt their unique biology and powerful sonic weapons that could disrupt or even incapacitate their vital dancers. The final, desperate push to defeat the invaders involved a multi-pronged assault aimed directly at their main command centers. In their vast terraforming efforts, the unified galactic forces, comprising countless species, courageous humans, resilient Mon Calamari, cunning Bothans, mighty Wookiees, and countless other species, fought side by side in a truly galaxy-spanning conflict. It was a war of unimaginable attrition, of desperate last stands on worlds teetering on the brink of ecological collapse, and of moments of unimaginable heroism from every corner of the known galaxy. The hard-won victory over the Yuuzhan Vong came at a truly tremendous and almost unbearable cost. Billions of lives were tragically lost. Countless worlds were irrevocably scarred or utterly destroyed. Their ecosystems permanently altered, and the entire galactic infrastructure was devastated to an unprecedented degree. The New Republic, though ultimately victorious, was forever changed by the crucible of this conflict. It emerged from the conflict as the unified Galactic Alliance, a far more centralized, pragmatic, and cohesive government, was forged in the agonizing fires of an existential war that had nearly consumed them all. The Jedi Order, too, was profoundly transformed. They had endured staggering losses among their ranks, but they had also evolved, shedding some of the rigid dogma and strictures of the past and embracing a more flexible, compassionate, and deeply interconnected approach to the Force. They learned that the Force was not just about power, but about understanding, adaptation, and a profound connection to all life in the universe. The Yuuzhan Vong War redefined the galaxy's understanding of external threats and tested its internal resilience to breaking point. It forced the various disparate factions and species to set aside their historical animosities and unite against a common, terrifying, and utterly alien enemy. It highlighted the sheer, indomitable power of adaptation, the necessity of desperate sacrifice, and the enduring spirit of life in the face of absolute destruction. The scars of the war would remain for generations, a grim reminder of the profound darkness that lay beyond the known stars, but also a shining testament to the galaxy's profound capacity for unity, heroism, and self-sacrifice. The universe had faced its ultimate test and, through immense suffering and an almost unimaginable toll, had ultimately prevailed, albeit forever changed. The invaluable lessons learned from the Yuuzhan Vong invasion would shape galactic policy, military doctrine, and Jedi philosophy for centuries to come, ensuring that the galaxy would never again be so unprepared for the unknown and the truly alien. Chapter 8. Jacen's Fall. Legacy of the Skywalker Bloodline. The galaxy had survived the unimaginable horror of the Yuuzhan Vong War, but at a devastating cost. Billions of lives were lost, countless worlds ravaged, and the very fabric of galactic society profoundly altered. The New Republic had transformed into the Galactic Alliance, a more centralized and powerful government forged in the fires of an existential conflict. The Jedi Order, though decimated in numbers, had evolved, becoming more adaptable and less dogmatic, learning hard lessons from an enemy immune to the Force. Yet, even as the galaxy began the arduous process of rebuilding, a new, insidious darkness was already taking root, not from outside invaders or lingering Imperial remnants, but from within the very heart of the Skywalker bloodline. This era would be defined by the tragic descent of Jacen Solo, a fall that would echo the dark fate of his grandfather, Anakin Skywalker, and plunge the galaxy into another devastating civil war. The seeds of Jacen's fall were sown in the crucible of the Yuuzhan Vong War. He had endured unspeakable trauma, witnessed unimaginable atrocities, and felt the deep, agonizing losses, including the sacrifice of his younger brother, Anakin Solo, while his twin, Jacen Solo, found strength and purpose in direct action and unwavering commitment to the light. Jacen became increasingly introspective, seeking deeper understanding of the Force, and, critically, of the nature of pain and sacrifice. He embarked on a profound 5-year journey of extragalactic exploration and Force study following the war's end. This journey, intended to heal and to find new perspectives on the Force, instead exposed him to dangerous philosophies and pushed him towards a path he believed was necessary, however dark. During his travels, Jacen encountered various Force traditions from distant corners of the galaxy, some benign, others morally ambiguous, and a few outright dangerous. He delved into the intricacies of esoteric Force techniques, pushing his abilities to their very limits. Crucially, he learned to embrace pain and to manipulate the Force in ways that blurred the lines between light and dark. He became convinced that true mastery of the Force required understanding and command over both its aspects, a philosophy dangerously close to that of the ancient Sith. He believed that only by experiencing the full spectrum of the Force, in its darkest corners, could he truly protect the galaxy from future threats. Upon his return, Jacen was a changed man. His demeanor was colder. His eyes held a calculating intensity, and his connection to the Force was undeniably immense, but unsettlingly different. He was no longer the compassionate, idealistic Jedi his family remembered. He quickly established himself as a prominent figure within the Galactic Alliance Defense Force, leveraging his Jedi abilities and tactical genius to achieve swift, decisive victories against lingering post-war threats. He became a hero, a symbol of strength and competence, but at what cost? His methods, though effective, began to show a ruthless efficiency, a willingness to employ morally questionable tactics if they achieved the desired result. He believed he was acting for the greater good, for the ultimate safety of the galaxy. But his definition of good began to twist. The galactic political landscape, post-Yuuzhan Vong War, was complex and volatile. The Galactic Alliance, still struggling with reconstruction and internal dissent, faced numerous challenges. Rogue warlords, economic instability, and the lingering threat of independent systems unwilling to rejoin the centralized government. In this climate of uncertainty, Jacen Solo's decisive actions and his unwavering confidence began to appeal to those who craved order and security above all else. He was seen as the strong hand the galaxy needed, powerful Force user who could cut through bureaucracy and deliver results. The turning point in Jacen's journey towards the dark side was marked by his embrace of the philosophy of unifying Force theory. This theory, as he interpreted it, emphasized the Force as a single, interconnected entity, where light and dark were merely different expressions of the same energy. While not inherently dark, Jacen twisted this philosophy to justify his use of increasingly extreme methods, believing that all actions, even those traditionally considered dark, could serve the greater balance if wielded for a perceived good. He rationalized his decisions, convincing himself that he was merely making the difficult, necessary choices that others were too weak or short-sighted to make. Intellectual justification became a dangerous pathway to moral relativism, blurring the clear lines between right and wrong. Jacen's influence grew within the Galactic Alliance, particularly within the military. He began to form an unofficial power base, gathering loyalists who admired his effectiveness and shared his conviction that strict control was necessary for galactic stability. He became an instructor within the Galactic Alliance Guard, training Force sensitives not just in Jedi techniques, but in his own more ruthless application of the Force. He taught them to suppress emotion, to make cold, calculated decisions, and to view perceived threats with absolute impartiality, even if it meant extreme measures. The Jedi Order, led by Grand Master Luke Skywalker, watched Jacen's evolution with growing concern. Luke, having faced his own temptations with the dark side, and having witnessed his father's tragic fall, recognized the subtle, insidious signs of Jacen's descent. He attempted to guide his nephew, to remind him of the true path of the Jedi, of compassion, and of the dangers of believing one knows what is best for the galaxy above all else. However, Jacen had become increasingly isolated, convinced of his own unique destiny and the absolute righteousness of his evolving philosophy. He saw Luke's warnings not as guidance, but as weakness or a lack of true understanding. The first major public sign of Jacen's radicalization came during the Corellian Crisis. A dispute between the Galactic Alliance and the Corellian system escalated into open conflict, fueled by political manipulation in the presence of hidden interests. Jacen Solo, now a Galactic Alliance security advisor and field commander, took increasingly authoritarian measures against the Corellians, employing brutal tactics to suppress dissent and force compliance. He ordered the systematic targeting of civilian infrastructure, justified as necessary to break the Corellian will to resist. These actions shocked the galaxy and deeply disturbed the Jedi, who saw their principles being openly violated by one of their own. It was during this crisis that Jacen's relationship with his family, particularly Han Solo and Leia Organa Solo, became irrevocably strained. They recognized the cold, ruthless stranger their son had become, a stark contrast to the idealistic, empathetic boy they had raised. Han, still grieving Chewbacca's death and fiercely independent, openly defied Jacen's orders and condemned his actions. Leia, heartbroken but resolute, tried to reason with her son, appealing to his light, but found herself increasingly powerless against his chilling conviction. The family that had once stood as a united front against galactic evil was now torn apart by its own internal darkness. The deepening crisis saw Jacen Solo formally declare himself a Sith Lord, taking on the chilling mantle of Darth Sidious. This was not the rule of two, but a self-proclaimed lineage, a terrifying echo of the past, marking his full embrace of the dark side. He believed that only by wielding absolute power, by forcing order through fear, could the galaxy be truly saved from the chaos that had plagued it for so long. He saw himself as the benevolent dictator, the one who would impose stability, even if it meant sacrificing freedom and individual rights. His former title as a Jedi Knight was forever tainted, replaced by a name synonymous with galactic terror. As Darth Sidious, Jacen systematically eliminated opposition, both within the Galactic Alliance and among the Jedi. He employed a network of informants and enforcers, turning the very security forces he had helped to build against those who dared to question his authority. The galaxy watched in horror as a new empire, albeit one draped in the mantle of a benevolent protectorate, began to rise. Sidious's rule was characterized by a cold efficiency, swift and brutal justice for dissenters, and a relentless drive to consolidate power. He believed that the ends justified any means, no matter how abhorrent. The Jedi Order faced its greatest internal crisis since the rise of the original empire. One of their own, a Skywalker, had fallen to the dark side and now wielded immense power against them. This forced the Jedi to make agonizing choices. They could not stand idly by as the galaxy was plunged into tyranny, but they were deeply reluctant to engage in open warfare against a former comrade and a member of their most revered family. Grandmaster Luke Skywalker recognized that this was a war not just for the galaxy's freedom, but for the very soul of the Jedi Order and the Skywalker legacy. He knew that, to defeat Sidious, he might have to make unimaginable sacrifices. A crucial moment in Sidious's reign was his brutal use of the Force to extract information and punish dissenters, practice that horrified the Jedi. He honed his dark side abilities, becoming a master of physical and psychological torment. He believed that pain was a tool for control, and fear was the most effective motivator. His connection to the Force was undeniable, but it was a force twisted to serve his increasingly warped vision of galactic order. He was powerful, intelligent, and utterly ruthless, making him a terrifying adversary. The final confrontation against Darth Sidious became inevitable. The Jedi, led by Luke Skywalker and his twin sister Jacen Solo, reluctantly accepted that Jacen could not be redeemed. They understood that, to save the galaxy from this new tyranny, they had to confront him directly. The war against Sidious was fought on multiple fronts, a desperate struggle between the forces loyal to the Galactic Alliance's democratic ideals and those under Sidious's increasingly authoritarian grip. It was a painful, personal conflict for many, particularly the Solo family. The ultimate confrontation between Darth Sidious and the forces of the light culminated in a series of devastating battles. The tragic weight of history bore down on the Skywalker and Solo families. The legacy of Anakin Skywalker's fall loomed large, a grim prophecy that now seemed to be repeating itself with his grandson. The galaxy held its breath, witnessing another internal struggle for its very soul. The final, decisive duel occurred between Jacen Solo, now Darth Sidious, and his twin sister, Jacen Solo. This was not merely a clash of lightsabers. It was a battle, born of deep love, twisted into agonizing conflict. Jaina, having reluctantly accepted that her brother was beyond redemption, dedicated herself to stopping him. She underwent rigorous training, pushed her own force abilities to their limit, and prepared herself for the unimaginable task of confronting her own twin. Their bond in the Force, once a source of comfort and strength, now became a conduit for their devastating conflict. A link they both exploited and fought to sever. The duel was fought with raw emotion and unparalleled skill, a brutal ballet of lightsabers, fueled by both desperation and fractured love. Jaina, understanding her brother's tactics and predicting his moves through their Force bond, fought with a clarity and resolve that Jacen, blinded by his own dark convictions, underestimated. In a moment of devastating precision, Jaina delivered the fatal blow, ending her twin brother's reign of terror. It was a victory, but one steeped in profound tragedy and irreparable personal loss for the Solo family and the entire Jedi Order. The death of Darth Sidious brought an end to his tyrannical rule, but the scars of his fall were deep and lasting. The Galactic Alliance had again endured a devastating civil war, this time caused by one of its own heroes. Trust was shattered, and the cost in lives and resources was immense. The Jedi Order faced renewed scrutiny and distrust from a public wary of Force users, especially those from the powerful Skywalker bloodline. They had been reminded, in the most painful way possible, of the ever-present danger of the dark side. Even to those born of light, the legacy of the Skywalker bloodline remained complex and deeply conflicted. It was a lineage of immense power, capable of both incredible heroism and profound darkness. Luke Skywalker continued his role as Grand Master, facing the heavy burden of his family's painful history. He understood that the fight against the dark side was eternal, and that the path to balance was fraught with peril. The events of Jacen's fall served as a stark, enduring lesson for future generations of Jedi, that power, even when sought for noble reasons, could lead to corruption, and that the greatest threats often came from within. The galaxy, forever changed by this internal strife, began the long, slow process of healing once more, but with the haunting knowledge that the shadow of the past, the temptations of the dark side, would always remain a potent force